So, in this episode, we're trying to get different perspectives from families of people that were kidnapped by Hamas, and it's a pleasure to talk to you. The first thing is my audience may not be familiar with your particular story, the story of your two brothers-in-law. So I'm sure you've told it many times before, and I know it's a difficult story to tell, but if you could just briefly tell us from your perspective on October 7th, what did you learn about your brothers-in-law, and maybe you could talk about each one of them and what's happened with them since.
Okay, so I'll start by saying that I am married to Amos, my husband, and he's the middle brother. He has two siblings. Iair is the oldest. He's 47, and Eitan is the youngest, is 38. Iair lives in a small community on the border, 2 kilometers from the border with Gaza, kibbutz Nir Oz, and Eitan, the youngest, was visiting him for that weekend. Actually, my husband was supposed to be there as well. They were about to do kind of like a siblings weekend, but luckily my husband finished working that Friday, October 6th, very late, so he did join that weekend. Most amazing people, funny, very loving, warm people, wants to make this world a better place. I think it's always important to remember who are they, that we're talking about just human beings. On October 7th, both of them were kidnapped. I think it was an hour after the attack started. At around 7:30 in the morning, we lost contact with them. We didn't know what happened, but they stopped answering. And both of them were taken into Gaza. We know that on the same day they were taken to the tunnels. I think they took them around 4 hours. They walked them from place to place, and the Gaza population would come and beat them with big rocks and pieces of wood. They would go around with them as if they were the trophy, and they were, screaming, "We have a Jew, we have a Jew," and all the people would come and just hit them and beat them. And the last place they were taken was inside the mosque, and people came inside the mosque and beat them. And this way they become injured, because they were not injured in the abduction. And since then they were in the tunnels. Iair was released after 498 days. In the January 2025 deal, he was released in February 15th. And we were hoping that that agreement would be concluded and would go into the second and the third phase. And in that second phase, Eitan was supposed to get released as well. But as we know, the ceasefire collapsed, and Hamas and Israel did not make it to the second part. And we still have Eitan hostage.
So has Iair talked about what his experience was like as a captive?
So unfortunately, he's not talking about it. I think he wants to kind of protect the family, but more than this, he's afraid that something bad will happen to Eitan. So just imagine, I just mentioned that it was released on February 15th, which is more than 6 months ago, but he's not really a free man. He's physically walking around among us, but he's not here with us. His soul and his head and his thoughts, everything is back in Gaza. He's not willing to go through rehabilitation, not physical and not psychological. And just imagine what they went through. We know of the torture and the starvation, and we know that the only thing he says is that it's hell. It's hell. No other word to describe, but he's not going into details. So for us, people say, well, you have half job done, you have 50% back. And I say, first of all, no, Iair is not a free man. And second, we need all the 50 hostages, so we as an Israeli society and as a nation can start rebuilding ourselves and of course the region. And for me, it's part of the story. I believe that the key component to a better future here in the region, for the Gazan population as well, is that Hamas releases the hostages and they leave Gaza, because the Gazan population, I believe that they're being held captive as well by this terror organization way too many years.
It's also possible that before Iair was released, Hamas told him, if you talk too much about what happened to you, we will harm Eitan, right? It's possible. Yeah. It's a very disturbing situation. So I want to talk about what you think should happen right now, because the latest polls I've seen, and obviously I'm American, I'm not Israeli, so I read the American news and I read some parts of Israeli news, but it seems like just over 50% of Israelis want to end the war and get a hostage deal, even if it potentially means leaving Hamas in power for some amount of time. And something like 30% of Israelis believe Hamas has to be destroyed, even if it means not getting a hostage deal. So what is your opinion on what should happen with the war, and why do you think that should happen?
So I'm glad that you have those numbers. I want to add you another number that we have here in Israel. According to, I think it was a poll made like 3 or 4 weeks ago, 84% of the Israeli population wants to see all the hostages back, even if it means the end of the war. And as we know in polls, it's always the answer always depends on how you ask the question. But if you take this 84% and you understand that most of those who voted to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are included in this number, that means that Israel wants the hostages back. And I feel comfortable saying that it doesn't matter what the price. Why? Because unfortunately, we know that you cannot eliminate Hamas. The same way that the US could not eliminate Al-Qaeda nor ISIS. And let's go 80 years back in history. We, the Jews, we have the trauma of the Holocaust. And, the allies, the United States and UK and France and even together with Russia, they could not eliminate the Nazis, and we still see neo-Nazis parties here and there, and all sort of, and we see a lot of anti-Semitism rise now around the world. So we cannot eliminate an ideology. We can save life, and what we need to do right now is save as many lives as we can, and that means doing an agreement right now, and there's a deal on the table, and we're talking today, the end of August 2025. I hope it's not going to be too late, but there's an agreement right now that was made and prepared with the mediation of Qatar and, of course, with the leadership of the US, and it's called the Witkoff deal. And I believe that Israel should accept that deal now, yesterday, a month ago. 2 months ago, Israel accepted to that agreement, but Hamas said no. And now I think it was a week ago that Hamas said yes, and now Israel is not taking it. Now I understand that they want a comprehensive deal and they want to eliminate Hamas and all those kind of things, but I think what makes us so special and so unique is the fact that we sanctify life. And if you want to sanctify life, so it's more important to save now those 50 hostages, even though around 30 are not considered to be alive, but saving them and bringing them back to burial is saving their families. And of course, the living hostages that, as we speak, they can get killed any second, or maybe they starve to death already, because a month ago we saw the horrible video of Rom and Eviatar. So we need to take that deal. There's no such a thing as a good deal to Israel. When you release terrorists from the Israeli prisons, it's not a good deal. It is a deal that saves lives, and Israel is a strong country, and it has all the security that the US is willing to be part of the day after, and so many other Arab countries that were never part of those conversations. They're willing to be part of the day after. And yes, unfortunately, we won't become best friends with Gazans. But we need to live side by side with a lot of security and to make sure that October 7th won't happen again and all those kind of things. But the first thing in the Israeli and in Judaism is saving life.
So I think you said, correct me if I'm wrong, you said earlier that you would accept, even though it's horrible, you would accept all the hostages returned, even if it meant at any price, including leaving Hamas in power and letting them rebuild. What percent of Israelis do you think would accept that?
When you say it like this, I think it's very hard for any Israeli, because we all saw and felt what happened on October 7th. They took babies into an oven and they burned them alive. You know, they raped women, they raped women which they killed before. They did horrible things. So I don't want to see them in power. And I think this is an international task to not have them in power. But I also understand that those same terrorists are holding 22 living hostages right now and 28 deceased hostages. And this is why, if you ask me, and I'm a hostage family, imagine if it was your brother-in-law, you know? So if you ask me, yes, we need to do everything. And then you put all this diplomacy and all those things. So I think that Israeli population wants to see them back and not leaving Hamas in power. But Hamas has agreed to not be in power. The problem is that you don't have any other good options of who's going to be in power, because Hamas has been in power for, I believe, almost 20 years as a dictator. It's not even a dictatorship, as a terror organization. So they don't have anyone following to just take the lead. And that's always a problem, you know. So if you change your phrase, most of the Israeli society is there. If you're saying that Hamas is staying in power with their arms, so, you know, with their weapons, so it's problematic.
Yeah, I mean, it's really an impossible situation, and I don't fault anyone for having the opinion they have on it, because it's a terrible choice to have to make. And so let me say one other thing, which is the counter argument is if Hamas stays in power, they've promised to do October 7th again and again and again. And so the argument from you might call it the hardliners, is that we have to seize this one opportunity to get rid of Hamas once and for all. Or else, you know, this will happen again, whether it's 10 years or 50 years. Eventually, the strategy of building a wall is vulnerable to complacency, which is just a human tendency. Israel was surprised in 1973, surprised on 10/7. One day you'll be surprised again. It always happens. And so in the long run, it's better to finish the job now. That's the argument. What would you say to that argument?
There's no such a thing. There's no such a thing as finishing the job, as long as you have Qatar and you have Iran who's sending money. So what do you mean by saying eliminate Hamas? When do you feel Hamas is being eliminated? Look at how many Hamas's leaders and commanders and whatever you want to call them, Israel eliminated already. And they always have new ones, because that's the thing of a destructive ideology. Once again, the same way the United States could not eliminate Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and the same way that we still have neo-Nazis walking around the world, right? So you cannot eliminate them. What you can do is stay strong and stay and be yourself. And what's the difference between Israel and Hamas? What's the difference between the US and Hamas? What's the difference between those democratic nations who shares value of life is sacred and we'll do everything we can, but at the same time we need to fight terror together. So when you have countries like the UK or France or even Canada who are saying, you know what, it's about time to declare a Palestinian state, what you're saying is, first of all, their statehood is based on terror, and second, those people killed, slaughtered, burned, and they're still holding hostages. Oh, let's give them a prize. So if we could just have the world, the democratic countries, the Western world, together with us, understanding that the only way of fighting terror is by being together in this path, in this struggle. And you know what? On the Israeli side, I don't think that all the people in Gaza, including Hamas, the day after will say, okay, let's become friends. And they won't start sending me flowers. We will need our army strong. We will need the intelligence. We will need to make sure that it will not happen again. Because unfortunately, that's the story. And when I chose to get married and have kids in Israel, knowing that by the age of 18, they will need to go to the army, I understand that we're living in a tough neighborhood, which is called the Middle East. And not everyone around us loves us. But we know who we are, and we're people of light and life. And right now we're not being people of light and life because we're being blinded by this, I don't know if it's this feeling of wanting to revenge, and you cannot revenge the loss of your loved ones, or wanting to eliminate something that history shows us that we cannot eliminate them. And I think there's so many examples, unfortunately, in history. So I think that if the world can put pressure on Qatar and Iran to stop sending money to Hamas, because at the end, if those terrorists don't have money, they won't be able to do, So I think that if you take if you take some steps back and you do zoom out and more zoom out and more zoom out, so there's a way to make Hamas weak, and Israel forever will need to defend itself and to make sure that October 7th won't happen again. Those terrorists want to do it over and over. You hear from all the release hostages. In the first deal in November 2023, they told them, don't go back to your home because we're coming for you again. And this is the reality. But once again, I believe that by choosing life and by choosing to build, and when I say build, is not necessarily build a higher wall, because that's not the thing. You saw how they crossed all the walls that we had there. But when I say build is we need to build agreements with other countries. And there's so many Arab countries that want to eliminate the idea of terror, and they want to have, you see, in the Abraham Accords, and you see so many things, but we cannot do it by ourselves. If France and UK and Canada would only say, you want a Palestinian state? Okay, start by releasing the hostages. Then Hamas has to leave the weapons. Then they have to leave Gaza. There's so many, I think, ways of doing it. And I'm an educator, I'm not a diplomat, okay? But we need help for that.
So I want both of you to tell your personal stories. Obviously, our audience is mostly American, so we're familiar with the details of October 7th, and we follow the war, but we don't know your personal stories. We don't know the story of your children. So if we could just begin by perhaps bring us back to October 7th, if you don't mind. I know it's an incredibly difficult thing to talk about, but I think it's important for our audiences to understand who you are, who your children are, what happened, and how personal this is for you. So let's start with Talik, if you don't mind. Tell us the story of your son.
Ran was on sick leave when he got a call from his police unit. When on sick leave with a broken shoulder, he went out to his unit, fought, and was wounded in the process, and kidnapped after he ran out of ammunition.
After 2 days, we didn't know where he is. After 2 days, they come to us and tell us that he's, איך אומרים, מנותק קשר. And after 2 weeks, they told us that there is that he's in Gaza. They took a picture of him on a bicycle like this. He was איך אומרים, שכוב on the bicycle in Gaza. And after in January 2024, they told us that is killed in the 7 October. This is they think that it didn't get a treatment and it not survive, not survive. But we have a big hope that maybe it's it gets treatment and it will be come back to us. We hope, we pray, we hope. He's a very, very strong guy, very strong guy.
I'm so sorry. Okay, Tzvika, tell us about your son and your experience of October 7th as a parent.
Okay, so on October 7, we're living in Kiryat Arba, Hebron. Hebron is the second holy city for the Jewish nation. King David was king in Hebron 7 years before he was king in Jerusalem, and we are living there. And we are parents of 8 kids, 4 boys and 4 girls. And Eitan is our eldest son, 25 years old. Eitan was a security guard at the Nova Festival and saved dozens of people before he was kidnapped. Eitan was kidnapped by Gaza's civilians, okay, with jeans and shirts and T-shirts, okay. Eitan was missing for 10 days. For 10 days before we get the first information from the Israeli intelligence that Eitan is in Gaza. We thought that Eitan, dead, but they told us that Eitan is in Gaza, but they don't know if he's alive. And the first life sign came after 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, the Israeli intelligence told us that Eitan is alive. And right now, we didn't get any information about Eitan for about 6 months. About 6 months, I don't know if my son is alive. And if he is alive, I don't know if Eitan gets food, water, appropriate facilities, of course, the tunnels. And it's very important for me to give you the whole picture about the lives in Israel. Look, we came home. We came back to our only land, our only state after 2,000 years. And since then, since more than 100 years, okay, the Arabs don't want us to be here. And all the world knows that this land, the land of Israel, belongs to the Israeli nation. The Arabs have 22, okay? 22 states to be there. And we have only one state, and it's our state. It's not their state, okay? They came from Saudi Arabia, from Egypt, okay? This is our land, okay? We are the kids of the prophets. And now we came back and we want to live here in peace, and we tried several times since the Israeli state established. We tried to make a peace with the Arabs, but they refused. Every time they refused because they want all this country, and they are not going to get it because we are going to to fight to fight for our land and for our lives. We are not going to get back to Europe or other countries.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things you said in there, and we'll get to it all. But first, I want to talk about your political advocacy as parents of hostages. In America, we hear from hostage families in the news sometimes, but we only ever hear about hostage families who want the war to end now on any terms, including leaving Hamas in power. And you have staked out a different position, a position that must be incredibly difficult for a parent to articulate, which is we actually do not want to end the war on any terms. This war has to end with Hamas destroyed, even even if that compromises the hostage situation. So it's a situation where your interest as a parent might be the opposite of the interest as a country.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, that's not exactly accurate. We want to live in a country where we can raise both our grandchildren and our other children as well. I do not think that Hamas will release the abductees as long as Hamas lives and stands and breathes. Anyone who has read the Hamas charter knows that all it wants to do is basically exterminate the Jewish people and the Zionist people and take our lands. Besides, Hamas won't release the abductees. No way. I mean, we're going to have to continue in this horrible period for a few more years.
I want to add that from day one, Hamas didn't provide a list of the hostages. We don't know the condition of our loved ones. It means that Hamas can say that he has only 15 hostages. And what about the rest? He can say that he doesn't know. So we don't have another option. We have to fight, okay? We have to force Hamas to give us all our people in one time, in one day. We're afraid that Hamas will keep some of the hostages for decades.
So, I mean, that answer makes sense to me. It also, I'm curious what your relationship is like with the hostage families who are on the other side of that issue, because you guys have taken a position, agree with it or not, you've taken a position that's extremely selfless as a parent, right? Like we can debate about what policy Israel should have, but it's clear that you have chosen what you view to be the national long-term safety of the country. You mentioned thinking about your grandchildren's generation. You've chosen that over what would be your selfish interest as a parent. And I could imagine that would rub some of the other hostage families. Well, it would, in a way, your position is a challenge to them, because what you're saying is, I can still be a good parent, I can still be a loving parent and prioritize the long-term well-being of my country. And that becomes a challenge to the other hostage families, whether you mean it to be a challenge or not. That becomes a challenge to them to think about whether they are being narrow and self-interested in advocating for a ceasefire now at any cost. So I'm curious, what has your relationship been with the hostage families on the other side of this issue? And are you guys able to find camaraderie, or are you political enemies?
No, we're not political enemies. We love all the family. We are in contact, a good contact with them. We talk with them every day. I'm talking. And when you say what you really mean or really believed, and you say it clearly, they understand. They understand us. They don't agree with us, but they understand us. Like we don't agree with them, but it's one family. In our family, it's the same. My brother thinks something else, but we are still brothers.
Yes, I believe that the only chance for me to see my dear son is to win this war. Hamas didn't provide a picture, a video of my son. Okay? It means that Hamas saying that he doesn't know where's my son. Okay? Hamas doesn't admit that Eitan is in his hands. So I'm afraid that Eitan, my son, will be there in captivity for a long time. So I think that the both things, winning this war, this national view, and getting back my son, is going together.
So, do you think that it is possible to win the war against Hamas? I mean, separate the question, the strategic question, separate the hostage question. Do you think militarily it is possible? Because both Israel and America have examples, Israel in Lebanon, America in Vietnam, where we are fighting an enemy that is a lot weaker than us on paper, but we're actually not able to win because of the mechanics of the battlefield, because of for really nitty gritty military reasons. It's just a war that they're able to fight using guerrilla tactics forever. And the more powerful army actually, can't really win. So do you think it is possible from a military point of view to destroy Hamas?
Of course. You have to close water, electricity, and you will see that Hamas will surrender. It's very easy, but it's for us, okay? For us, it's difficult to do that. But if you think about it, it's very easy. Just close the water. They don't have water there. They get their water from us. Okay? I think that if we just now closing the water, I think that in a couple of weeks, Hamas will surrender.
The counter argument to that is if you close water, you close aid, the civilians are going to die before Hamas because Hamas steals everything. So they'll be the last ones to suffer.
You have to evacuate all the civilians to the south of the Gaza Strip. Okay, women, children, elders. Okay, and Hamas will stay in one area and then close the water, close the electricity, and they will have to go up from the tunnels and surrender.
So Talik, do you agree with that strategy? And do you think it's possible to destroy Hamas?
I'm not a military woman. I was in the IDF, but I don't know how to fight. But in my mind,
I'm not saying that it's a lie. He's not a military man, but on a logical level, it makes sense. Evacuate the population centers, just evacuate them. There is a plan, the general's plan, to evacuate the population as if to the northern region, and then literally constantly fire. It's to take certain areas, cut them off, and occupy them, to cut them off from water, and electricity and crush them. Whatever we've done up to now, we fought the right way. We were in and out, and it doesn't mean anything. In the end, every time we went out, the terrorists came in again. We are aware of this because there are hostages there. It's like we are working with tweezers, but there are still all kinds of options here that for some reason they do not use. There is also the global public opinion that keeps creating a problem here.
What would you say to the following argument? Israel has suffered so much in terms of its image around the world. What if the better thing to do right now is to cut those losses, double and triple and quadruple the border between Gaza and Israel and border security, and make sure never to have another lapse again, so that there will be no second October 7th, but basically say we have to make a hostage deal. Let's get the hostages back. We'll leave Hamas in power and they'll rebuild, but we will be so vigilant about security for the rest of time so that we won't allow another October 7th to happen.
I just think that for Hamas, there is no interest to come and make a deal and return the hostages. I personally agree that if there was an opportunity to remove all the hostages and end the war, I would do that. I just don't think it's something that is real. They will not allow it. They will not let it happen. All of our hostages. We have hostages from 11 years ago who were kidnapped. Their bodies were there, Oren Shaul and Hadar Golden. For 11 years, we haven't had any legitimacy to go to Gaza and take them out and fight them. This time, we have legitimacy.
Final question. Thank you so much for your time. I know this is, as I said before, this is a really tough thing for you. But why have you chosen to publicly advocate for these positions? Because I can imagine it would be very tempting as a mother to just withdraw and be private and say, I can't deal with public attention and and the fact that my son was kidnapped and possibly killed. Right. For many people, that would just be too much. And they would say, screw it. I'm just going to be a private person throughout all of this. I'm not going to talk to the media. I'm not going to participate in the clown car of politics. But why have you chosen to make your positions public?
My son is a hero. He's a soldier. He go to save people in Israel. He go in a mission. It's a Zionic mission.
If he fights, then I feel like I should continue his war. If I asked Ronnie how you want me to behave, he would tell me, Mom, tell everyone you must eliminate and destroy Hamas. May there not be another mother like me in this country. I feel like I'm continuing his fight. It's hard to make a distinction between emotion and logic.
That's a beautiful response. How are you able to do that? Because I think, a lot of people, they would want to be able to do that, but they're not really able to. They can only speak from the emotional side. So is that like a choice you made at some point, or is that a character trait you've always had in your life?
It's my character, I think. But, I speak with my child, with Ran, every day. Every day in my imagination. And I ask all the time, what we're going to do. I have another son and daughter. He's also a police officer. And I was, חינכתי אותם to be a good person, to go with עם ההשראה שלהם, עם התפקיד שלהם. ויש לי אחריות כאימא להמשיך את זה. אני לא יכולה להגיד להם, אתם אל תחשבו ברגשי, תחשבו בהיגיון ולהתנהג בצורה אחרת.